Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Building Great Sales Teams podcast. I've got an awesome one for you guys today. I've got Amanda Catarzi. She's the director of Automation Empire and Wholesale Automation. She's also the owner of InkeryCo. She's an expert in business strategy, sales team building, copywriting, and networking. Amanda, welcome to the show, sister.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Absolutely. Your resume is like everything you need to start a business from scratch. So, I mean, I'm excited to hear from you here. You recently posted an unpopular opinion. If you keep losing, you're not learning, which is interesting. Because, we hear all these trendy topics on social media, and with your background and everything, you've probably used those topics to bolster your clients' social media and stuff like that. And so, tell us about that. If you keep losing, you're not learning.
Well, the basis of that is I was having a conversation with a friend and they were applauding this guy for starting over for the fourth or fifth time with their business had failed and they were starting over again. And you could see a very clear track record of why the businesses kept failing. And they were applauding this person for starting another business and like, yay, failure's great. Well, failure's only great if you're actually learning from it. Otherwise, you have some bad habits and you are not learning anything and you're going to keep failing. So while failing forward is a great concept, people need to actually apply it. And so that's what that was about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, when we get into these trendy topics or these one-liners, that we hear from influencers, there's a lot of caveats that go into them. People want them to be a universal rule, but that's just not the case oftentimes, like we can see like this. So I just wanted to bring that up and have you explain that because I think it's a great lesson for our listeners that, hey, just because it sounds cool and trendy and everybody's saying it and all the top influencers are doing it, doesn't mean it's perfect for every situation. Everything has variables, everything has caveats, and there's so many. You really got to look at your situation and self-assess for sure.
100%.
Okay.
It's not black and white. It's definitely very, very 50 shades of gray.
All right. So in your automation business, you're what I would describe as an entrepreneur. Okay. This is
Mhm.
somebody in the business that has all the skill sets, all the capabilities of operating their own business. Obviously, you do with InkeryCo, and but somebody was able to kind of capture them and say, "Hey, I've got a big enough opportunity here. I can fit your dreams inside of mine."
Mhm.
How are they able to do that? And what is it like for you going from entrepreneur to entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question because I got a lot of hate mail about it. People were really upset with me when I announced that I was going to work for somebody. They felt like I'd kind of abandoned the entrepreneur lifestyle. They thought I was kind of quitting on the dreams and the ideas everyone have surrounding entrepreneurship, but what they didn't realize is it was a very strategic move that catapulted me 5 years ahead of where my plan was to be. So the story goes that I was engaging Ron early to speak at an event for one of my current clients with InkeryCo. And long story short, we ended up meeting for him to sign a copy of his book for me because we lived in the same city. And 15 minutes turned into 90 minutes and a job offer. And I'm like, well, I just met you. I'm not sure about all this. And I have my own company and we got to figure out what that looks like. And after about a week of writing for him and shadowing him and seeing what he was creating, I knew 100% that I wanted to be involved with him. And I knew that taking his offer was going to be the absolute right choice for my future and aligned with my goals as far as what I wanted to build for impact and build for myself. So it wasn't a choice I took lightly for sure at all. But it was the best choice I could have made 1,000%.
I love it, and I love it because so many, and I'm gonna do air quotes here. Entrepreneurs say they'll never have a job again. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
it's on how you define job, right? But
Right.
for all intents and purposes, if somebody is paying you to do something, that's a job, right? And
Mhm.
so based on that definition, like one of my friends asked today on social media, he asked, would you, as an entrepreneur, would you ever be open to taking a job? You know, and my answer is 100% yes. If
Mhm.
I'm doing 2 million and somebody that's doing 100 million says,
Right.
"Hey, come into my business and there's an opportunity for you to net 3 million." Think about how much I would have to build my business in order to net that 3 million. So there's the numbers aspect of it, but there's
Mhm.
also understanding that, okay, I have this opportunity, just like I would, like if a client that was doing 100 million came in and said, "Hey, I need all your time." It's the
Right.
same thing. You know what I mean? And so knowing all that is the opportunity there. And
Mhm.
what I like what you did was you shadowed them first, right? And what that enabled you to do is kind of see how they operate, how they treated
Mhm.
their people or treated the people around them, you know. And so I think that's an essential part of it because I have recently I've had a few opportunities just like this,
Mm.
where it's like, hey, it might make sense if I can bring my team and my team can be employed by them also, and we
Yep.
can grow this thing, because there's a
Yep.
whole lot more opportunity. Maybe they have a way bigger brand than I do, whatever the case is. And so, and plus, I would imagine you have autonomy in your business, anyways.
Yep.
So
Yep.
again, depending on the opportunity, the time requirements, and all that, sometimes it just makes sense. And so I think it's a concept that translates a lot from where I'm coming from because I
Mhm.
did door to door sales, right? And everybody that was sitting across from me that I was about to hire always had the same answer when I asked them where they wanted to be, and it was in my seat. Every answer was the same. You know what I'm saying? Instead of what they wanted for themselves, it was the
Yeah.
position, the
Yep.
title of owner, which I think is way over glamorized. You've got plenty of owners that
It
only
really
make 5
sucks.
grand a year. You know what I mean?
Well,
Well,
and what's hysterical, the idea of a job is majority of
yeah,
entrepreneurs are not building a business. They're building a job and they're
yeah,
going to a job and they're working for their business, not on it. They're working in it.
mhm,
So it's just really interesting to me how people put these labels on it. And it's like you're literally working for 5 bosses or 10 bosses instead of
yeah,
just one. And then I was also able to negotiate for equity within the companies. So um, y- tell me, I would have not been able to scale that quickly my
yeah.
copywriting agency. So chestnut checkers, kids.
I love it. I love it so much. Awesome. Okay, so in the automation business, this is important because, man, I've had so many mixed reviews about it in general, right?
Oh, yeah.
So going into the masterminds, you've got your people that are heavy in investments. Maybe they're investment experts. They do syndications. Real
Mhm.
estate, real estate is king, right? And so, but all too
Um,
often, anytime there's a room with money in it, what's going to happen is the other investments are going to come in. And Airbnb arbitrage,
mhm.
right? Airbnbs in general, and that's just another form of real estate, but one of the
Yep.
ones that always comes up and is heavily, heavily marketed is Amazon automation. You know, so I have a question that you probably get all the time, the same way I
Yeah.
used to get the same question in door to door sales, right? Is door to door a scam? Door to door sales is a scam. I'm going to work for a week and you guys are going to pay me, whatever the case is. I got all these preconceived notions that came
Mhm.
with that title of door to door sales, right? So Amazon
Right.
automation is often tied to a negative connotation, which is it's a scam, whatever the case may be. So my question for you is first, how do you avoid those? Because they are out there, right? How do
Oh,
you
yeah.
avoid those? And then secondly, what are you guys doing to kind of break that, I guess, reputation of it?
Yeah. We are very open and honest. So if we were a scam, would we be inviting 60 plus people to come tour our entire operations? Of course, we're having them sign NDAs. Of course, they're clients with us. They're coming to our warehouse. They're meeting almost our entire staff. We we literally have the doors open. And that is a conversation and an option available to all potential clients, as you know, as long as you sign an NDA, because we've got IP. You are more than welcome to come look at our books, come sit in meetings. We actually had a potential investor. He invested with us and then he showed up. He just flew down here. And so we had him sit in almost every single meeting except for one, which was more of a political, inner workings
Yeah.
culture kind of meeting. But
Mhm.
he sat through all of our operations meetings. He sat through all of our systems and he was like, holy cow, like nobody does this. Stockbrokers don't do this. Real estate investment groups don't do this. And we are certified by the state of Florida as an investment group. We were awarded a key to the city by the mayor. We're doing things that e-com companies do not do. And the cool thing about us is we own every single part of our process. So we don't white label, we do not outsource anything.
Mhm.
We own every single part and we can pivot and we can show you and we can bring you and introduce you to those people running each and every single part of our systems and operations. So unfortunately, there are a lot of people scamming people out there. I mean, that is something that we deal with on the regular. We get stonewalled because of that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to convince somebody. I'm just here to provide an opportunity. And if you throw the word scam on all the bad choices you made, you are not going to be successful in life. That's not my responsibility. Um, so it is kind of a bummer that people have ruined it, but actually somebody was just texting me a referral. We get referrals from companies that have scammed people so many times. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, we know that you're doing it right." And we often cut really great deals for those people because we feel bad for them. And it's such a
Yeah.
shame that people are taking advantage of blue collar working people who are trying to make their first investment.
Mhm.
And we want to support them in that way and make it right in that way.
I love so much about what you said. A few things I want to point out. IP. You know, if a company is going to take the time to trademark that intellectual property or protect that intellectual property,
Mhm.
chances are they have something that is worth protecting. You know what I'm saying? The
100%.
second,
Yep.
the second thing I would say, the physical warehouse that you guys have. From what I've heard about these businesses is when you have the physical warehouse, you can typically bet that it's legit, because they're
Mhm.
actually holding inventory, they're actually doing distribution versus
Mhm.
when everything's white labeled or I guess automated outside of the physical part, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's too easy. It's too easy for it just to disappear. You know what I'm saying? When there's not a physical product in place. So
Right.
that makes a ton of sense there. And but my favorite part about what you said was if you labeled every bad choice you made as a scam, you wouldn't get very far in life, which is so true because it points out something that I think is even more important and something I'm going through right now as an investor as well. I invested in this real estate deal in Florida, right? And the developer just decided that she was going to turn her life around and no longer be ethical. You know what I'm saying? So she more than anything just kind of walked, right? And
Breaking Bad
is
kind of situation there.
is doing legal jujitsu to extend her walk, I guess you could say, to where she doesn't have to be held accountable for several years
Oh man.
because she's putting us through the legal system and everything. So, but my point is, I don't have yes, I'm upset, and yes, there was a group of us that came together. There was a few guys that were very savvy in this leading it, but that's part of it. Like, I can't be upset at them. I took the risk. They gave me everything up front. They showed
Mm.
me all the documents and the investment and everything, and it looked good to me. Now I'm a newer investor, so maybe I made a bad choice. Maybe I didn't. Maybe a seasoned investor would have made the same choice I did.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the burden of proof is on me as an
Mhm.
investor. So
Mhm.
what you said about every bad choice you make isn't a scam. I relate to that so much, and it was so many times people came to my business, made a bunch of bad choices, and left, and then called it a scam on their way out, instead of
Mhm.
just taking responsibility for those choices, which I
Right.
think is the case in a lot of these situations where people are saying immediately, "Oh, my friend was scammed," or "My friend's cousin's sister was scammed." So
Yep.
all Amazon automation is a scam,
Yeah.
and we hear this so many times. It's like Fortune 20 companies,
Mhm.
AT&T, bad customer service one time, and now AT&T just has bad customer service for the end of time,
Yep.
which is a label that's so hard to get rid of sometimes. But I'm glad to hear you're on top of that. So within the business, as an entrepreneur within the business, what are you kind of doing in the business with your experience and your background and everything? And what are you guys executing on right now?
It's been a really interesting journey inside this because when I first started, I was writing for Ron, I was writing real scripts. And then he's like, you just need to shadow me and learn this business so that I can utilize you in other areas. So I kind of stepped into this executive assistant position for a while to where I was literally with him all the time and really learned how his mind worked, how the strategy worked, how the whole entire
Mhm.
industry worked, because I was completely ignorant of ecom and of Amazon FBA. I didn't even know existed when I first started. So this was a massive learning curve for me. And then as needs arose, I would just apply myself where needs were. And that turned into me basically running the relationships with all the distributions, manufacturers, and brands that wholesale automation purchases the products from on
Mhm.
behalf of Automation Empire clients. So I had to learn a whole world of distribution, of manufacturing, of freighting, of warehouse operations. And again, massive learning curve there. It was a tough couple months there initially where I'm like, I don't even know what size pallet things are or what kind of forklift I need or,
Right.
you know, any of that, what a lane is for a freight, what does that even
Mhm.
mean? And then I had to negotiate for all that and negotiate pricing, which was really fun. As you know, in sales, it's kind of a blast, in learning
Mhm.
how to communicate as a woman in a male-dominated industry and get what I want was
Mhm.
very interesting to learn because my default, being super honest, is to flirt. And that's just not acceptable. I mean, it works to a degree, but
That's a true salesperson right there.
that's not the woman I want to be professionally.
Right.
So how
Yeah.
do I utilize my skill as a woman and my
Mhm.
femininity as
Yeah.
a power tool without exploiting it?
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting process that I'm still learning, but, I hope I'm better at it at this point. But Ron
I
Ron mentored me quite a bit in that, which I'm super, super grateful for.
I love that, and I love that you're bringing it up because it is important, right? Too many young women are getting into sales, and they're
Yep,
being taught by sales organizations, dealerships like I used to run,
yep,
that hey, use your femininity, use your attractiveness, use being a woman in your
mhm,
favor, but use it in the cheapest ways. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Which
yeah,
is not developing your skill set, is not developing your communication skills,
yeah,
not developing your marketing skills, which
mhm.
any woman can use use those tactics,
It's so
right?
cheap.
You want to separate yourself.
Mhm.
So I love that you brought that up. With your diverse experience and background and your previous business, are you taking some things from there and applying it to what you're doing now?
Oh, 1,000%. Even before I started InkeryCo, I was a social worker for 8 years,
Mhm.
which is all communications and sales, but it's got a
Yeah.
little bit more of a treacherous result, right? So I'm trying to convince people to go into rehab. I'm trying to get, women out of trafficking, and so if
Mhm.
I can't convince them to trust me and to go with me within a couple minutes, they could die. And so that translated into being a writer and
Mhm.
marketing and writing copy that could actually produce a ROI. And then that translated into negotiation and building trust, communication is the number one tool that you can develop that will benefit you across any career that you choose. Communication is the key to everything. And it's the most valuable skill I believe that you can have. So I'm grateful to have been able to practice that in such intense situations. So now when I'm negotiating with Nestle for product, no one's going to die, but I'm going to get, 30%, 40, 60% profit margin instead of 10 or 20.
Yeah, no, but no one's gonna die, but,
Mhm.
being that I guess that's the muscle you used to stretch,
Yep.
negotiating this now must feel like, "Oh, this is a breeze because there's not as much pressure," but at the same time, you're still using those same tactics, right?
Oh yeah,
Let's talk
it's
about
fun.
let's talk about copywriting a little bit,
Mhm.
because I think every salesperson can use good copy, whether it's in recruiting ads, whether it's in, maybe they're placing their own ads on Facebook or whatever the case is, or
Mhm.
that maybe they're making some marketing materials. Is there a certain framework that you like to use when it comes to writing copy?
Yeah.
And how do you execute on that?
Well, first, before you get into any framework, you have to know what problem you're solving and who you're solving it for. And
Mhm.
it was wildly crazy to me how many people could not articulate what problem they were solving and who they were solving it for. They'd be like, oh, this is for everyone. Well, then you are not going to make any money. If what you have is for everyone and solves everything, you are already out of business and you are already bankrupt. Um, because, this is going to sound sacrilegious and I believe in Jesus, but Jesus is for everyone and he solves all the problems. And we see how
Mhm.
many people do not believe in him. So if you want to be as successful as Jesus, which
Mhm.
he is not here anymore, then go for it. And I know that's probably a terrible example, but I mean, that's the writer in me is to break your frame and try to
Yeah.
get a reaction. And you did not give me a reaction at all. So good job. Um, so I think the number one thing, like I said, is to know what you're selling and being able to clearly articulate what problem you're solving to a very specific um, avatar. And you need to have three levels of that avatar, and you need to have three money options as well, so that you can hit multiple people. And usually your middle line pricing is going to be the most biggest seller anyways. So you're going to focus and put the most energy into that. Moving forward, I use Closer framework, which is outlined in Ron Early's book, Closer. But basically, it's really similar. It makes just super sense. You're clarifying, you're labeling, you're doing all those things in a more detailed way, and you're making it real. I think people get caught up in writing scripts and writing templates, and they forget that business is actually very freaking personal.
Yeah.
People always say, "Oh, it's not personal, it's business." It's the most entrepreneurship is the most emotional, personal thing you could ever be involved with. And when it comes to people's livelihoods and money, that is insanely emotional and personal. So your copy should reflect that, and it should be real, and it should be conversational, and it should be empathetic and engaging. Um, I would say in copy, the most important thing to focus on is triggering emotions. And
Mhm.
people tend to go to negative emotions because it's easy to induce fear. Like we're talking about cheap tactics again, right? So, cheap
Mhm.
tactics, including fear and scarcity. And those are very easy things to sell off of. However, that will not create a sustainable or a high return when you get to high ticket sales. So when you're getting into high ticket sales, you will need to invoke positive emotions and you'll need to
Mhm.
release dopamine, serotonin into their systems, right? And so you can do that by storytelling and taking them on a journey. And there's tons of methods that can be used that way. Um, but if you want to learn more about that, I would really suggest Getting Closer by Ron Early. He outlines it in such a perfect way, and I literally apply it to everything. I think it's also worth talking about, and I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I get so
No, you go.
passionate about selling to women versus selling to men.
Mhm.
There is a strategy there. And when you engage with men, you need to engage in logic and you need to engage in facts, and you also need to challenge their authority. As a
Yeah.
woman, I always challenge the man's authority and get him to double down on it, which usually works in my favor. With women, I'm going to be highly empathetic and I'm going to leverage emotion and engage with them in that emotion and be relatable. So, I mean, same if you're selling to different political parties. I've written bipartisan legislation and I had to go across the hall and pitch to, Democrats, libertarians, Republicans, and my pitch adjusted according to who I was talking to, according to what, each individual person stood for. And I was highly successful as well. Just knowing who you're talking to and how to engage their positive emotions is critical to copy.
I love it, and I love what you said about it going from a low ticket item and engaging those negative emotions to engaging more positive emotions as you go high ticket. It makes a ton of
Mhm.
sense. And then selling to women versus men, as you were saying that, I was thinking about a framework that I teach, which is selling the way customers want to buy. And
Mm.
there's a fighter and a detective; those typically sell to men. There's an entertainer and a counselor; those typically
Yep.
sell to women. And exactly what you outlined is so incredibly true. So I appreciate you walking us through that. And 100%, I'm going to get on Amazon since we're talking about that after this and order Ron Early's book Closer. It sounds like a gem for sure.
Yeah. No, and I loved how you described that detective and fighter and then counselor and, entertainer. Those are such
Mhm,
vivid words, and I'm a
mhm.
word geek, so I love that that paints a very descriptive picture. I love that I'm gonna have to steal that.
Yeah, as much as I would love to take credit for it, that's actually a training done by Southwestern Consulting,
Oh,
which
okay.
is they had the original door to door Bible sales teams. So,
Okay.
like, they were the original door to door guys selling Bibles. Yeah. And
Bringing it
so,
right back around to Jesus.
yeah, right back around to Jesus, right? Um, but the guy that administered that training, and I believe he developed it, his name is Rory Vaden. And
Okay,
so I think he's with Brand Ambassadors now or Brand Builders, that company. And so he teaches you how to build your brand essentially. But
cool.
he's an incredible sales trainer and brand specialist. But I also have his quote at the bottom of every one of my emails. If you ever got an email from me, it says, "Success is not owned; it's leased, and the rent is due every day."
Okay, yeah,
So
definitely.
it's a great quote of his too. I think JJ Watt and The Rock both are quoted as saying that, but it was
Yeah.
Rory Vaden first.
Well, yeah, they apply
Anyways,
to the gym. Yeah.
but yeah, if you go to bgstsalestoolkit.com, I go through that training. And so it's a really good training, and it obviously goes right hand in hand with copy. So awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got an event coming up on this Friday. This episode is going to release Wednesday morning, the 18th. And you've
Woo.
got an event, I'm assuming Friday, the 20th.
Yep.
And so tell us about the event and if any last minute people want to get in, what they can do.
Well, I've got 2 last minute spots,
Mhm.
and the goal here is to build revenue streams for first time investors, experienced investors. So my parents actually pulled money out of their 401k because they felt like it was unstable and invested in a store. And they were able to just go on their first trip, international trip ever in their lives to Italy. And we're Italian. So my dad, they made tiramisu the other night. They've been riding Vespas everywhere. They are send the most ridiculous pictures to me. They are having a blast, and it's so cool to be able to offer them something like that. And I mean, and that's what we do is we offer that kind of opportunity. So on the
Mm.
20th, we have the Garage to Empire event, which kind of just showcases it's Ron and Kaylee, his their 7th-year anniversary of doing Amazon. And so we're celebrating that. We're also celebrating our 1-year anniversary of acquiring this company and changing the business model completely, and the wild success that we've experienced with the new business model and with us taking over. And so that is the 20th. That's going to be an immersion tour. They're going to come here to the office. They're going to meet the entire team. We're going to go to the warehouse. They're going to get a tour of the warehouse and understand the systems and operations that go into FBA. And then we're coming back for a dinner and a networking event. And these are people who are involved in Airbnbs. They're involved in real estate. They're involved in crypto. They're involved in so many different areas of investing in business. And so it's all about impact and legacy. Like, I think you would agree, most entrepreneurs, we get into entrepreneurship because we know we're called to make an impact. And you just can't do that without a lot of money. Rarely can you create
100%.
sustainable impact without money. So you have to become wildly successful. How do you become wildly successful quickly? Entrepreneurship. So at heart, we're all philanthropists and we're all of the same mind in that we want to create legacy and impact. And I think that's the huge driving factor is getting us all in a room to where we can understand how we can help others, how we can create revenue streams for people, how we can liberate others. Um, and so, yeah, that's what's happening on the 20th. And if you want in, we have 2 spots left. And if you choose to reach out to me or invest with us, I will fly you in first class. I will buy your ticket. You will come to Sarasota and you can stay here for the weekend. I don't care. You can stay here for the weekend, enjoy the most beautiful beach in the country, Siesta Key. And yeah, change the world with us and make money doing it. I mean, it's a win-win.
Beautiful. Where are they going to go? Where would they go to get more information on that? Obviously your social medias, but do y'all have another spot that they can go directly to?
Sure. Our website is automationempire.com. They can reach out on there, or you can literally DM me on my Instagram or on Automation Empire's Instagram. So my Instagram is Amanda Catarzi, and then the company's Instagram is Automation Empire.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that info.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. And
Yes.
you just talked about this, but I'm curious about what it is for you. So, what does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, this actually recently shifted. So I love this
Okay.
question. And it shifted because I found out that I was pregnant. So I had 5 miscarriages, and my whole goal was to have all the babies and raise all the powerful children in the world.
Mhm.
But, that was decided that that wasn't for me for some reason. And so I had to shift that, which has been a really interesting experience, especially as a woman. I'm already full grown, and now I have to change my ideas surrounding this. But now, what legacy means to me, I want to leave a legacy to where I am liberating people. And that requires a lot of different things. But honestly, first and foremost, it requires wealth because to pay for any good therapy, you got to have money to step
Mhm.
into a new level of freedom and out of survival. You got to be financially freed up. Um, and so my goal is to meet their immediate needs now, which for most people is finances. And then I want to mentor people and bring women into true femininity to where they can be an alpha female without being obnoxious, without being a brat, without being a unhinged feminist, and support powerful men in their roles and create that synergy between strong women and strong men and kind of bring balance back to our culture in that way.
I love that. I love everything about that. I've also heard your story though. If you guys get a chance, go check out Amanda's interview with the Real Business Owners. She had a
Mm.
fantastic interview on their show, and a lot of her background and everything. And it was a very beautiful story. So I know you're going
Thank
to make
you.
that impact. I know you're going to fulfill that legacy. And I want
Yeah.
to thank you so much for coming on the show and imparting all that value, whether it was the copywriting piece or the entrepreneur piece, a ton of value for us. And again, if you are interested in checking out the, I'm sorry, what was the website again? Wholesale automation.
Automationempire.com.
There you go. Automationempire.com. Definitely check that out and hook up with Amanda. It sounds like an amazing trip that they're going to have, and they're going to be networking with some really cool people out there as well. So
Mhm.
thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
All right, let's get building.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We appreciate it. Be sure to execute on everything that you just heard, and let's get building. Before we sign off, we'd like to invite you to join our Brickyard community. Head on over to jointhebrickyard.com. Again, that's jointhebrickyard.com, or click the link in the description to find out more.